So thank you so much, gorgeous souls, for joining me for another one of my Spiritual Queens Badass podcast episodes. Today we have a very special guest, and I'm so excited to welcome the lovely Sabrina to the podcast. So Sabrina Egerton, if you don't know, is someone who lives with passion and purpose. Known for her appearance on Love is Blind UK Season 1, she has taken that experience and turned it into an opportunity for growth, both personally and professionally. Sabrina's true love lies in exploring the world, whether through travel, the fast-paced world of Formula One, or her keen eye for fashion and beauty. Welcome to the show, Sabrina. How are you doing?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me, Emma. This is so
My
surreal.
We should probably give some backstory to this. I
Yeah.
was just telling Sabrina before we hit record that me and my partner, we are obsessed with Love is Blind. So as soon as the UK season got announced, we were on it. We were so excited. And when the lovely Sabrina came on screen in the pods talking to Stephen and her dates about manifestation, of course, I instantly had to look Sabrina up. And she was following me already, so I knew that we were going to get on. And I just thought, like, we need Sabrina here on the podcast. So I'm so excited that you said yes. And I'm so excited that we get to talk today. Thank you for coming on.
No, honestly, it's such an honor. Thank you so much for having me.
Amazing. So, Sabrina, a question that I ask every guest here on the podcast is, when did you spiritually awaken? What's your story? Would you call yourself spiritual?
I am spiritual, and I think throughout my entire life, I've always been more spiritual than religious. I think, even as a kid, we were brought to church, and that was kind of part of our kind of just as a family. That's just something that we kind of did together. But the older that I kind of got, and the more kind of I started learning about the world, and I was very much more drawn to the spiritual side than the religious side. Um, but with regards to like kind of really diving into it, like my spiritual awakening, I guess, it wasn't really an instant thing. It was more of a gradual process. But I suppose what really comes to mind is in my early 30s, I had came out of a long-term relationship. So I'd been in a relationship for 10 years. So when I came out of that, obviously there was this like kind of trying to figure out your life and who you are and what you want next. And I started really a lot of personal development. I did a lot of therapy. I did a lot of solo traveling. I started looking into mindfulness, and I had always done like a little bit of meditation with yoga and things like that, but I started meditating a lot more. And then that led to manifestation and practicing gratitude. And I think for me, when I discovered kind of manifestation and gratitude, it was almost like a light switch for me, that it was like, it's hard to explain, but for me, it was like this realization of like, I can be like this active creator in my life and not just a passive participant. Does that make sense? Like suddenly I felt like I had kind of the tools that could help guide me in my life.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of people, like I definitely resonate with that myself. When I came across manifestation, it was like, oh, life makes sense now. I have these tools to navigate life with and understand how life works. So yeah, I definitely think that a lot of people have that same experience when coming across it. So we know that you love manifestation. We know that you
hmm
love well-being. We know that you love all of these things that we adore here on this podcast, Sabrina. So tell us about Love is Blind. Tell us about the show. How did this opportunity come about? Were you manifesting love? Was that your intention, that you were openly manifesting a husband?
So I feel like I was really, I think, really focusing on personal growth and that deeper connection in my life. So I think that was definitely a priority for me. Do you know, I feel like everything in my life was going so well. I had this career that I loved. I had an incredible friend group. I have incredible supportive family. I traveled. I was doing all of these amazing things, and I feel like that last piece that was missing was the person to share it with. So I definitely feel like I had put it out into the universe that that is something that I was looking for at the time. So when the opportunity for Love is Blind arose, I guess it just made sense to me at that time. Do you know, I felt like I felt like I'd been asking the universe, and I had this really strong sense that my person was not in Ireland. Do you know, I dated in Ireland and I'd met, and I just had really struggled to find someone that was that just made sense to me. I guess, that connection. I was really struggling to find that connection in Ireland. So I had this really overwhelming sense. And, my sister had joked about it as well in the past. She's like, your person's not here, like your person's not in Ireland. So then when I saw this opportunity for Love is Blind, it just made sense. And I was like, this is an opportunity for me to meet someone based on their heart, their soul, and their mind, and taking out all of that physical and that shallow side. Um, so it just made sense. Like it just, I can't even tell you when, even throughout the application, I was so like I just had this sense of knowing. Like I just knew that I was going to be on that show. Like it was a hard process. The application was difficult and it was long, but I just had this overwhelming sense of that this is right for me, that this aligns perfectly with where I am in my journey, and I'm going to go and meet my person.
I love that. And did you kind of have a clear vision of what your person would look like? Or, because obviously Love is Blind is very much sight unseen. So it's not really about looks at all, which is, a massive bonus. But did you have a vision of who that ideal person would look like, or characteristics or qualities? Like, how much did you really sort of got specific about that manifestation?
Really specific. So, that it's actually really funny because I was quite sick the last few days and over the weekend, and I hadn't really left the house, and I started just, when you're bored in the house and you start cleaning and stuff, and I found this piece of paper down like at the back of one of my bed stands, and it was some of the things I'd written at the start of 2023 during one of the new moons of what I was looking for in life, and part of that was that meaningful relationship. And for me, it was, I feel loved. I feel like I belong. I feel validated. I feel secure. I am loved. And it was that sense of I want to be in a relationship where I feel connected with someone, and I can be authentically myself with some of the things I had written. So I very focused on how I wanted to feel in the relationship and how I could make that person feel those ways as well. But then when I looked back then at the start of the year, when I'd written down everything that I'd want from that year, like I had literally described the person that I wanted my partner to be, and like personality, hair color, eyes, like I had went into, like I had created this person. um and sometimes, and I think that's maybe a lesson that I've learned as well, sometimes you can get too specific with your manifestation that it closes you off.
Mm.
And it's not necessarily always, I think it can block you from meeting people because you're being like, oh, but I want this. So I feel like that's where Love is Blind was really great, because it dropped those blocks and barriers, and it allowed me to really trust the universe, trust the experiment, and just try and make that soul connection.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're so right. Like, I remember when I manifested my first serious relationship, when I found manifestation, I was like, hair color, eye color, all the details, like you say. And now I'm like, gosh, none of that matters. And when people say, should I get that specific? I think, if that is a non negotiable for you, then yeah, get specific. But if you know, I do believe, like you say, you have to be open to all possibilities and really just see what the universe wants to bring into your life. So I think get clear on those core values, those beliefs, but in terms of looks and appearance, let it flow, let it be flexible unless there's those non-negotiables there. So let's move on to the pods then. So we're in the pods now, you're on the show,
Mm-hmm.
you're going through this. And obviously, as I said, the reason how I came across your Instagram was because you and Stephen were talking about your love of gratitude, manifestation, spirituality, wellness. So what does your daily practice look like? And when did you first discover manifestation?
So it would have been my early 30s, probably 32, 33, after that relationship, that I really kind of started my manifestation practice. And for me, it was very much based around the moon cycles. On a new moon, setting intentions, and on a full moon, releasing and letting go of what was no longer serving me. That's really worked for me because I feel like it holds me accountable. That every few weeks I'm checking in with myself and being like, hang on, a couple of weeks ago I said I wanted to achieve X, Y, and Z, but nothing I'm doing is aligned with me achieving those goals. So I find moon, doing it during the moon cycles, that works personally for me really, really well. Um, but then I really kind of focused in on gratitude, and gratitude has been a huge part of my journey. Um, and that kind of really changed things for me. I think it's probably one of the most important parts of manifestation, in my opinion. I feel like you can't expect change, or you can't level up unless you have the appreciation for what you have in your life. And I think too many people focus on, and I've been guilty of this as well. I wish I had this, but hang on, like, let's take a step back and like be grateful for what you do have. So now what I actually do is every morning I will sit down and I will write 10 things that I'm grateful for that day. And that could literally just be like, I'm so glad that I've woken up and the sun is shining. I'm grateful that I feel good today. My body feels good. It doesn't have to be these huge things. And I think that's where gratitude really helped me focus actually on the smaller everyday day things in life that we should be thankful for. So I try and do that every morning, 10 things. And then I will do like a short meditation just to kind of ground myself and center myself for the day. But I'm not perfect. I don't, I sometimes, like, if I'm on holiday, the chances are I'm probably not sitting every morning and doing that. I will, of course, try to stick to my routine as much as possible, but that's not always going to be the case. Or, if I'm going to Dublin to meet clients and I'm up at 6 a.m. and I'm running out the door, and sometimes I'll bring my gratitude journal with me and I'll do that on the train. Or so I don't hold myself. I think when I first started doing that, I put so much pressure on myself, and that also took away the
Mm.
enjoyment and the meaning behind it. So now I don't put pressure on myself, but it is my goal to do that every morning, those 10 things, and a short meditation.
Yeah, and I 100% agree. I feel like there's so much pressure to be like, you have to do it perfectly, you have to do it every day. And it's actually like, well, no, it's your daily practice. It's what works for you. It has to feel good, it has to bring joy. Otherwise, why the heck are you doing it? If it's feeling like a chore, it's depleting you. That's the complete opposite of what it should be doing. So I definitely agree that, give yourself permission to have a day off, give yourself permission to try new things, do 5 things of gratitude, do 10, do 20, whatever feels good, but it's mixing it up so it resonates with you, because there is no right or wrong way to manifest. It's what resonates with you, it's what feels good. So I definitely think having that consistency is important, like you say, to create gratitude, because again, that attracts more reasons for us to be grateful, as we know. But also raising your vibration as well, and just feeling good as a whole. Like, I love
Mm-hmm.
doing gratitude in the morning because of how I feel afterwards. So it sets me
Mm-hmm.
up, I feel, for the entire day in a really positive way. So I feel like I'm 100% with you there, Sabrina. Gratitude, meditation, they're my non-negotiables too.
And I think, sometimes when you are having a difficult time in life, it's hard to stick to that. Like, it's hard to sit down and be like, what have I got to be thankful for today? But actually, you know, you know, in some of my most difficult times, gratitude's actually been what's brought me out of them, and just really helped me guide me through the kind of the more darker periods in my life. Because I think for me, like, gratitude, it's almost like looking for the good in adversary and adversary. What's that word? Adversity.
Adversity, yeah.
Is it? It is, yeah. Like, I think a great way of thinking about it is like, diamonds are formed under pressure. And I think
Mm.
sometimes I like to think of the gratitude is that diamond under the pressure. Like, if you can find all of these little moments to be thankful for, like, that will change your outcome, it'll change your perspective, and it's going to change your life, because how you look at everything will be different.
Mm, absolutely, absolutely. So, in the pod experience, then, we obviously only really saw you and Steven. We didn't really see much else happening. So, did you have any other connections with anybody else? And was anybody else, did they love wellness and manifestation like you?
I did have other connections, but I didn't connect with anyone over wellness or manifestation. Actually connected with some of the girls more on that side than any of the guys. Um, but no, didn't have connections in that way with anyone else.
Mm. And what was it like to be in the girls, obviously in the girls' HQ, and having that experience all together?
Oh gosh, Emma, it's so surreal. Like, it's really hard to explain, because like, I'm a big believer in energy, and the energy that you're around is kind of sets the mood and the tone, and sometimes that lounge was just filled with so much joy, and we were all playing games and having so much fun, and other days it was so low. And
Mm.
if someone's having a bad day, or when it gets a little bit more difficult, when everyone's dating a little bit more seriously throughout, and you're dating the same people or whatever it may be, it can become really really difficult, and hard in that line sometimes. Um, so there was definitely ups and downs, but I have to say, the girls really supported each other, and like I have honestly made friends that I will have for life from this experience, and I'm so beyond grateful for that. Because I don't think anyone else will really understand what you went through. Really, I have like my closest friends, like I love and adore them, but they will never ever understand that experience and that process the same way that some of the girls will. So, yeah, but it's mad.
Mm. And did the timeline actually kind of pan out how we saw it on TV? Because it appeared you got engaged very early on, and then I thought, oh, so you guys just sat in there, you know, doing doing stuff every day until everyone gets engaged.
No, that's the power of TV, and we dated for a long time. Like it looks like we just like met and we're like, let's get engaged, and that's not at all what happened. We really spent time getting to know each other, and we had some incredible dates that you guys, don't get to see. So no, it wasn't quite as quickly as you guys saw on TV.
Interesting. And like you say, it's the power of TV where they can just position things. And like you say, we all
Hmm.
thought, oh my gosh, this has happened so quick, but we're in love with them. They're amazing. So yeah, it's interesting. So obviously, as the story unfolds, we
Hmm.
got to the reunion, and I have to say, I was absolutely gutted. I had my money on you two still being
I know.
together. I think everybody I was talking to, we were like, oh my God, Sabrina and Stephen are end goals. Like they're going to still be together. It was kind of like the Lauren and Cameron of season one Love is Blind US. We were like, they are the couple. And
Hmm.
I feel like all of us went through whiplash as well of like, I mean,
No.
obviously it must have been horrific for yourself, but I feel like all of us are like, what the heck happened? So did you have any inkling before the wedding, or was it only after the wedding that everything sort of changed for you two?
I know it's so difficult because I feel like everyone was rooting for us, and that was
Yeah.
so difficult because between that wedding episode and the reunion airing, the amount of congratulations messages I had, and that was really difficult to like obviously process and focus on when I obviously knew what was coming in the outcome. Um, but honestly, for me, no, there wasn't any kind of indication before the weddings. Um, to be honest, Emma, I feel like, I spoke my truth at the reunion and I said what I needed to say to Stephen, and I kind of obviously you're only seeing such a portion of the reunion, and I have spoken about it since, but now I just feel like I want to close that chapter, and I don't want to keep giving it time and energy because I need to heal and move on. And I know people have so many questions, but for me, I just need to move past it now.
Yeah. And I suppose it's until this episode came out, until everything was aired, you probably felt like you probably couldn't move on because this
Couldn't.
was all still to come. You were going to have to do all the press, all the interviews. Then, it obviously the episodes are like staggered out as well. So it kind of was a process to get to that final episode where it was kind of all revealed for you. So do you feel like now it just feels like that energetic kind of weight or whatever you want to call it has been lifted because it is out in the open?
Yeah, like this year was very, very difficult for me because obviously the breakdown of the marriage, but then not being able to talk openly about that, then
Mm,
being so aware that that's about to be shown publicly for the world to see, and obviously you've no idea how your story is going to be perceived throughout the show. Then to see like how beautiful the story is, to then having that anticipation of the reunion, like it was I feel like I'd done so much healing work, and then it was just that the trigger of all of that being aired again, having to do the reunion, having to do the press, seeing Stephen again for the first time in 8 months. Like it was so beyond triggering, and kind of set me back a few steps, and I had to really refocus and yeah, just really really difficult time. But I think for me, because I had held on to so much for so long,
mm.
I can't tell you after the reunion, like the weight that I felt lifted. Like it just really felt like, okay, I've said what I needed to say. I can move on now. Do you know, I've been holding on to so much and for so long, and that's not healthy.
Mm.
Um, so so yeah, like it really was just like I can breathe again.
And I really felt that, like, as if you were watching it, and I know my friends were obviously discussing it. All of us said, Sabrina absolutely like voiced her truth in a really amazing way where I think
Thank you.
everybody was stood behind you, being like, we've got you, like, speak your truth. Because I feel like, we don't know what went on behind closed doors. We're seeing a filtered,
Hmm.
edited view of everything. So I think it was, we could feel that power definitely through the TV in terms of what you were saying and that closure and everything. So I think, it's good that you had that opportunity to voice all of that and not just kind of keep that to yourself or feel like you couldn't say it and then leave everything unsaid. So you're not kind of having that door closed or that closure, so
Hmm.
to speak. So yeah, I definitely felt like from a viewer's perspective that that was really well communicated by yourself. And, you've got to do that. You've got to close those
Hmm.
doors and say what's on your soul or what's on your heart at that time. So yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, it was different, and I think you guys are only seeing such a small part of the conversation, and it's edited in ways that I'm not happy with, and I'm sure Stephen's not happy with. But at the end of the day, for me, what was important was I got to say that to Stephen, and I did. And that's really, it doesn't matter what you guys get to see. For me, it was that he got to hear that, and that allowed me to move on and have my peace.
Absolutely. And I've seen you mention other interviews actually about your intuition as well, around how you kind of felt like maybe you hadn't listened to it. So, how have you kind of developed your intuition since that point? Do you feel like you listen to those nudges and niggles more?
I feel like for some reason, I think it's always something I've probably struggled with. And I think it's because I really like to see the best in people, and I love to give, like, I'm the type of person to be like, everyone's welcome, come join us, and like would very much give everyone, access to me in a way that I probably should be a little bit more protective. Um, and my sister, her intuition's amazing, and she's really good at listening to her intuition. And she said to me, Sabrina, you have to stop listening to people's words and start listening to their actions.
Mm,
And I think this intuition is probably, trusting my intuition has probably been the biggest lesson that I learned through my Love is Blind experience. Um, and learning to, if you have something that's telling you something's not right, ask questions later. Listen
mm,
to your intuition, figure out what's wrong later. There might not be anything, but if there's something telling you in your heart of hearts that something is not right, you have to listen to that. And I think that's probably one of the most important lessons I will probably learn in life, through this experience. And I know that I'm not going to take that little voice for granted anymore.
mm. And I think it's so easy to get swept up in things. And, one of the biggest questions I get asked is ego versus intuition. How would you tell the difference? So I think it
Oh.
is hard for people to, I guess, differentiate what's trauma, what's limiting beliefs, fears, what's leading through fear and ego versus what's leading through love, intuition, and soul. And, we've all had those experiences in life where you think, God, like now looking back, there was just that feeling. And at the time, maybe you couldn't put words to whether it was intuition or whatever, but there was maybe just a feeling there that we ignore or we don't listen to because we feel like, no, this feels good. And, I do believe we have to go along those paths as well. We have to experience those things, date those people, say yes at the altar, do all of those things to be exactly where you need to be. But what a beautiful lesson that you've also
Mm-hmm.
connected to your intuition and know to trust that and to listen to that moving forward. So I think, there's so many positives that can come from what would be perceived as, an awful situation. But I know there's going to be a lot of women listening and guys too, who have gone through, well, I don't want to say similar situations because your experience is obviously incredibly unique, but who are maybe navigating grief or loss or, that kind of betrayal, so to speak, of being with someone, whether they were married or in a relationship. So, how did you process your grief and emotions after you broke up? How did you process that betrayal and come back to this place of positivity?
Honestly, not very well initially. I shut down, and I very much like shut out all of my friends and family because I think I had this like immense amount of embarrassment I had asked them all to come to this wedding, and it had lasted for such a short period, and I had a lot of embarrassment around that. Which I know is so silly because it's my friends and family and they love me and they're going to support me. But when you're in that, like, it was just like, and I think because I hadn't listened to my intuition, I was like, how did I get myself in this situation? Like, why did I not listen to my intuition? I knew it wasn't enough time. I knew there was still so much unknown. Um, so I kind of really actually ended up in quite a dark place, and I was diagnosed with depression in January, and that took a lot of therapy to come through. I think for me, there was a lot of negative self talk, and I hadn't been very kind to myself, um, and had a lot of like blame for saying yes at the altar,
Mm.
and everything that came after that. Um, so I really struggled with that and had to work through that with a therapist, and over time and time again was like, Sabrina, you said yes based on all of the information you had at that time. Like, you can't beat yourself up about this. But in my head, I was like, I should have known. And I think because I did have that like intuition in the background telling me something wasn't right, I just really held a lot of guilt towards myself. Um, but that's what I mean about like gratitude and focusing on gratitude to help bring you out of those dark times, because I literally didn't leave my house in January except to go to the gym or well, Pilates, but to go to the Pilates or to go to meet clients if I had to meet clients, and that was it. The first time I actually went out socially was the 31st of January. Like, I didn't speak to anyone. I locked myself away, didn't see anyone. And I really had to kind of focus on my gratitude, my journaling, working on that kind of negative self-talk. Um, and that really helped really bring me through that. Now, it was a journey. It took a long time. Like, it wasn't just like, it was 5 months really before I started to feel like myself again. Um, but that really helped me focus on all of the good things that were happening. And yes, this part of my life was falling apart, but that's not all of me, and that doesn't define who I am as a person. And I have all of these other incredible things happening, and that's I honestly can't tell you, practicing gratitude and really taking account for the small everyday things really helped me come through that.
Mm. And I think as well, what you touched on beautifully there around, but why did I say yes? And, going back and how could I have ignored that? I always love what someone said to me years ago of Emma, it couldn't have been any different. It couldn't have been any different because you wouldn't be the very version of yourself here today if you hadn't have made those decisions,
Hmm.
if you hadn't have done those things. And I think it's so easy for us to beat ourselves up and, feel all the extremely valid emotions that you said, shame, embarrassment, all these different things. And it is that self compassion and that love for that inner child to be like, it's okay. We did the best we
Hmm.
could. You did make that decision with the knowledge you had. And I can only imagine it's a very extreme, intense situation where
Hmm.
you're put into a completely different environment away from your home, your loved ones, no phone, nothing. Like nobody experiences that when they're making those decisions. So I think even being in a completely different environment is just so different to what you would
Hmm.
experience normally, where you've got a film crew there, producers, probably all sorts being fed to you as well. So it is one of those extremely unique situations where you've probably taken so much away from it. And there's probably, your lifelong
Hmm.
friendships with the girls and so many blessings from it. It's just unfortunate that that love wasn't the end result for it, but maybe love for self was.
And I said this in one of the interviews that we did with the girls, but like, I thought I was going in there to write this whole big love story. And me and Stephen throughout had talked about like chapter one, chapter two, and we're writing the chapter of our life. But the reality was that was just a chapter and not the whole book. And I look back on that list that I was saying that I found, where I talk about what I want out of life, and every other thing on that list has came true, apart from the relationship. So, if it wasn't for the show, I wouldn't, I was in my job for 8 years and I was very happy, and I loved my job. But, if it wasn't for the show and the opportunity that presented itself, I wouldn't have quit my job. I wouldn't have started my own consultancy. I wouldn't have had the freedom to travel as much as I do, which just a big goal for me. Success to me looked like um, the freedom to travel and the time to travel as opposed to financial success. Like that. It's obviously that comes as part of it, but for me, it was really that kind of freedom to choose how I spend my time. Um, and all of that, the friends that I've made, the journey I've been on, the opportunities that are presenting themselves would not have happened if I hadn't done the show. And I think that's where manifestation really helps in those hard times as well, because I really truly believe everything happens for a reason. And the universe has three answers: yes, no, not right now. And I think that, I have to take this rejection of this, the breakdown of this marriage as divine intervention, because something better is out there for me. And that just was not the path I was meant to go down. So I feel like I can take solace in that. And that's really helped me, progress on my journey, my healing journey. Um, but that doesn't mean that at times it wasn't incredibly difficult, and it's taken me a long time and a lot of work. I've done a huge amount of meditation, a lot of cord cutting meditation, having to go back and work on, like, apologizing to that girl, like visualization of me at the altar and going back and apologizing to the girl, and how me in that moment and how I've spoken about myself, and being like idiot, like why did I do that, just all of this negative talk. Like it's been a big journey, and a lot of work, but at the same time, I trust there was a reason for all of this.
Mm. Absolutely. And with time, I know they say hindsight's a beautiful thing, but with time, hopefully those puzzle pieces will come together and it will be like, wow, of course that had to happen. And it couldn't have happened any other way. But it's always the thing when you're in it, you can never see that. You can never see that bird's eye view. Whereas the universe is like, gosh, like seriously, like look at all this stuff that's coming for you and all this amazing love and all the things that you want. And we get kind of stuck in that, but it should have looked like that, or it should have been this. And, if it should have, it would have been different. So I think what you said is beautiful.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
So I guess with all things being said, with all we've said, Sabrina, do you believe love is blind?
I honestly genuinely do. I feel, I genuinely fell in love with Stephen's, heart, mind, and soul, and that person that he had portrayed himself to be in the pods. Um, but it's not everything. Like, you have to have that physical attraction, and you have to have shared values, and you have to see if you're compatible in the real world. So while love, yes, can be blind, I don't think it's the whole puzzle. Like, I think there's other pieces that need to fall into place.
Yeah. And I think, from watching all the seasons of the show in America and now the UK, that seems to be the common theme of values and, wanting the same things in life and how it kind of applies to the real world. And I think, we all kind of fall into that. Oh my God, they're so perfect for each other. We want the fairy tale wedding for them. And then actually, yeah, there is a lot of real life conversations that need to happen, a lot of real life things that can come in and kind of, really pull people apart. So I think, yeah, I agree with you that I think it can be blind, but also there are other things that, make that lifelong commitment of shared values, shared interests. And sometimes love is not enough. You kind of need all those other
Exactly.
things as well.
Yeah, and do you know what? Imagine it had have worked. Do you know, look at Jazzy and Bobby and Benny and Nicole. Like, if it, imagine I hadn't have said yes and have let go to this incredible relationship and partnership that could have been forever. So I think hindsight is a wonderful thing, and it is hard to not be like ifs and buts, but there's also, well, what if it had have worked out?
Mhm. Exactly. You gave it a go. You went all in. So you were in that opportunity to find out where it would go. So yeah, you definitely did the right thing there, listening to
Thank
what
you.
felt in alignment at that time for you. So what is next for Sabrina? We're closing that door, closing that chapter. So what are you manifesting next and what is coming up for you?
Honestly, I'm really focused on my business still. Like, I absolutely love what I do, and I love my clients, and that's something I want to continue to grow. It's so funny because my goals from before the show and since the show haven't changed. I want to build my business. I want to travel as much as I can. I've got one continent left to do, Antarctica, so that's on my manifestation list. And just really continue to grow as a person, and continue my journey, and um just try every day to be the best version of myself. And um I don't really have there's nothing that has happened since the show that I'm like, I want this, like I need this. I want to change kind of my path. I think it's just still be the same as it was before the show.
Mm. And I don't want to ask you this question because I know someone else on another interview has asked this question of, are you dating? But what do you feel like the future looks like for manifesting that love?
I think for me right now, I'm focused on career opportunities and projects that align with who I am, my passions, and what I want out of life. And that could lead me to meeting someone and forming a deeper connection. Um, I don't know. I think I just think that a relationship's just not at the forefront of my mind right now. It's just not at all, even in my. It's just I just don't see it in my future right now. It's not something I want to focus on me. I want to focus on continued growth. I want to focus on my path. Um, it's hard because I don't want to say I don't want that, because that's not true. Do you know, I still do. I am a hopeless romantic at heart. I do still believe in love, and of course, I still want to find that partner that I can to share my life with, and that we can be a team, and explore the world together and do all of these incredible things. But at the same time, it's not something that I need, and I'm really happy with my life and with who I am, and my business, my career, my friends, and I'm just going to focus on all of those things that bring me so much joy, and work in continued growth. And then if something happens, it happens, but I'm okay if it doesn't.
And I think that's the best attitude and mindset to have. Like, I feel like before I manifested Alex, who I'm with now, my fiance, like, I was literally in that mindset of work. I wasn't like, I need that relationship, I need that commitment from someone. I got to the point, a bit like yourself, where I was like, gosh, like, I never want to experience that again. That I literally was, do you know what, I'll be all right either way, whether I find someone, whether I don't, I'm going to be all right. And it was such a powerful energy and mindset to be in. Like, it was magnetic for my work, magnetic for so many things. And I just think, like, reclaiming your power and just focusing on you, filling your cup, like living your best life and focusing on joy is honestly like the best thing anyone can do. So I love that for you. It's going to be exciting.
Thank
I
you.
can't wait to see how it unfolds.
It is, and I think just I'm just so open to whatever opportunities come along now, and I just um feel so much gratitude for where I am, and the people that surround me in life, and I think, like you said, it's a great place not to feel that need for someone else.
Absolutely. I love that.
But we're
Well,
also not we're not also not shutting it out. Do you know?
we're not closing it off. We're open. So, Sabrina, one last question that I ask every guest is, what is one piece of life advice that you'd like to leave my lovely listeners with?
That's a great question. Gosh, that's a lot of pressure. I think probably stay grounded in your vision, um, practice gratitude, um, remember that you are the creator of your reality, and just trust that the universe has that plan for you. Um, I think that's really important, and of course, trust your intuition. I think that's, yeah, stay grounded, practice gratitude, trust the universe, but also trust your intuition. If something doesn't feel right, there's probably a reason for it.
All beautiful points. I love that. And Sabrina, where can everybody find you if they want to learn more about you, what you're up to, or follow along your journey?
Instagram was probably best. So it's just Sabrina Victoria Egerton on Instagram.
And we will link that down below so everyone
Yes,
has
that's not an easy handle.
Oh, well, it's been such a joy chatting to you, Sabrina. Thank you so much for coming on. It's been an absolute joy finding out all the goss about Love is Blind, but also, connecting on a deeper level about your healing journey, what it's looked like. I know it'll resonate with so many people. So thank you for being vulnerable. Thank you for sharing it. And thank you for being such a beacon of light on Love is Blind. It was such a joy watching you. And it's been awesome chatting to you today.
Oh my gosh, thank you. Honestly, it's been wonderful, and it's been really nice to have the opportunity to talk about manifestation and gratitude, and something so positive in my life. So thank you so much.